it's a modern convenience that actually made your life harder. Story 1. Why do I need an account to use your website? It's just one-time service. Also, I called customer service because your website is not user-friendly and does not have the services I am calling about. Stop asking me to hang up and go to the website. Story 2. Today I had to go to the urgent care. I was the only one there. They could have just taken my ID and insurance and had a practitioner see me. But the only way to claim an appointment, even by walk-in, was by scanning a QR to register. Except that they were on the first floor of a big building, and mobile service wasn't great. So I went on their Wi-Fi, but their website was down, so they had to print out paper forms that they had done away with. Except their internet was also down, so they had me write my information on the back of some receipt paper, and finally saw me, but they couldn't bill my insurance, because their system was down. And then they knew they had to send my RX to a Walgreens, but couldn't, because their system was down, so they called the closest Walgreens they could find for my RX, but it was actually 30 minutes away, because their system was down. So I asked for a paper RX order and went to the Walgreens next door, who had to contact the Walgreens 30 minutes away to get the RX transferred because the system was down at the urgent care, but they couldn't verify the RX being transferred because the system was down at the urgent care. Story 3. Touchscreen devices everywhere. Many people with tremor disorders like me, with 2 can barely use them or can't use them at all. Estimated 10 million people in the US with just essential tremor alone. Story 4. The whole applying for jobs online situation. I only work in hospitality and low-wage jobs. I miss the days of walking around town with my CV printed out, where I could talk to a manager about a vacancy, instead of wasting endless time filling out the same details for jobs and often silly questionnaires when I'll often hear nothing back at all. Story 5. My tumble dryer has a dozen presets for every kind of clothing, shirts, jeans, sports, silk, etc., but absolutely nothing on the machine or in the manual indicates temperature, which is literally a universal pictograph written on every item to tell you how to dry it. Also, I just spent a couple hours setting up my new TV. Used to be you plugged it in, turned it on, and it worked. Story 6. Social media. The disinformation and entertainment overabundance is dangerously addictive and rots our brain. It has immense potential for good, but as always, some bad actors and a good thing spoiled the whole thing. Story 7. Car park apps. Just let me pay without downloading an app, creating an account, trying to figure out what code this car park you anchors, and no, I'm not going to let you use my location. Story 8. This is sorta tough one for me. I love my prosthetic legs to some extent, but in order to use them properly, and adjust settings, I need my phone. The app. There are definitely some benefits, but also would be a huge downside if my phone wasn't available. Also, power outage. Charging it would come down to a generator as well as sometimes software problems. Stuck on an island. I'm screwed. I still have my very first prosthetic 3R60, which is purely mechanical, that I take with me on every single trip in case there are power issues. In a month I'm going to Disney World and taking 3 knees with me, my everyday one, my water knee, that 3R60 in case anything happens. Love all the new tech, but it could get you into trouble. My old legs were able to be adjusted with a 4mm Allen wrench, even one of them that had a microprocessor. It could still be manually adjusted. Unfortunately, no more of that. Back in 2012, I took my family on a Norwegian fjord cruise for a week. The following week was with our Norge family. My microprocessor knee died the very first day of the cruise. Thankfully I had my mechanical knee as backup. Would have been easier with the other knee, but thankfully knew how to walk with the first one. Story 9. Cloud services. I have my own portable drives. Not every free version of a cloud service has limited cloud storage, so it fills up and they can compel you to pay. Less tech-savvy people just bite the bullet often, but I had iCloud tell me that my solution was to copy it to my PC and clear it out. Then I go to my phone, and my photos are all gone. I never asked to delete them from my phone. Story 10. Windows automatically saving all of my files to OneDrive. I like to think I'm somewhat tech-savvy, but I can't for the life of me figure out how to stop it from happening. Recently moved a bunch of MP4 files from a USB to my PC. Then a short while later my email stopped working because the OneDrive storage was full due to the files I thought I saved locally. Story 11. Nick about made my life harder, but search engines correcting your search if they think you misspelled a word is a thorn in my side. The suggestions they give if they think you misspelled something are fine. It's when they start deciding no, this is what you meant without you saying so, and overriding the search results that it becomes an inconvenience. As someone who's often looking up non-modern English words, it's annoying. Stop being helpful and let me search for the thing I'm searching for. Story 12. Website cookies. They're designed to remember bits and pieces to make your life easier, but are used to track your history, create a profile and use it to make accurate personal digital image of yourself, available to the highest buyer or government. Story 13. Not being able to physically own a copy of a video game anymore. Even if you have the disc, you still have to download the game. You're paying for the privilege to play the game, not the actual game itself. Story 14. AI. No, I don't want whatever your pollution-powered disinformation machine thinks the information should be. I want the actual information. Get the out of my face and leave me alone, you overhyped autocorrect function. Story 15. Two-factor authentication for everything. You are a free recipe website. You made me set up a password. Let me use it. No, I don't need a second form of ID to use this site. You have exactly 0 of my vital information. no money, no numbers, and everything you have that someone might want is freely given on my public profile. Email, banking apps, sure two-factor me there, but all recipes and YouTube, why? Story 16, applying for jobs online. Can't just show up and ask for an application anymore. Everything is done online now, and most of these companies' application websites are some backwoods, with no security certificate, and a UI that looks like it was programmed in Notepad. Story 17, dating apps. They've made my life significantly harder in so many more ways and given me so much more anxiety than just bumping into someone randomly at the store, etc. Story 18, espresso machine. Saving money at home instead of coffee at a store, sure, but then there's the cleaning and the grinding and the getting the perfect foamy top, and the 5 cups a day problem. Took me 20 minutes to make a cup of espresso. Story 19, many teachers like me are pressured to use their school's online learning management system, Canvas in my case, or Google Classroom, etc. There are a few benefits, but on balance it makes things worse. Story 20, internet-connected appliances. Why does a car, fridge, or washing machine need a software update when you order a new product Roomba and the owner's manual is online, and they want you to link it to your phone so you can turn it on from work or whatever? I just want to push a button and make it go, and I like paper manuals. Story 21, PC still freshly set up with games and apps I just re-downloaded. I let OneDrive run only for it to take it upon itself with zero promoting to make copies of all my desktop icons and programs. After freaking out over what I assumed to be a virus, I deleted the copies and nuked OneDrive out of orbit from my PC. Story 22, online shopping, replacing brick and mortar shopping. I do a lot of hobbies where the feel of things is really important. I live in a high package theft area. I have ADHD and want to start on things without having to wait 3 to 7 days for my supplies to arrive. I wish I could just hop on down to whatever store I need, be able to check online if they have it in store, not online, and pick up what I need right then. Story 23, Keurig or other single-serve coffee machines. Absolutely not more convenient, and the coffee isn't any better than regular cheap drip coffee makers. Also, it creates way more waste, and the reusable pods make the shittiest coffee and are A to clean. My cheap programmable coffee maker is more convenient times 10. I'm so glad I went back. Story 24, arguably, cars. We completely redesigned how we build cities in the 60s and 70s because of cars, and the change is arguably for the worse unless you're an automobile manufacturer. It's also a huge contributor to global emissions. Story 25, sites, apps, and literally everything these days forcing you to connect everything to everyone. No, I really do not want to sync my contacts to my social media. I absolutely cannot have my family and work know about my personal life. Stop asking me to connect everything. Story 26, mobile phones and being accountable to people. 247. I wish I was born during the days where you just catch up with people when you saw them. I also feel like that meant friendships lasted better through times where you didn't see each other. Now the constant expectation to maintain communication is exhausting. Some of my friends understand, but largely people will just write you off if they haven't heard from you in few months. Story 27, I've just had a massive falling out with OneDrive. I didn't ask my laptop and PC to be linked. I want them for different things. Stop making me connect everything. Story 28, any kind of AI integration. I don't need to talk to chatbot to help solve my problems, and it only fumbles forward until it puts me through to a rela person. Story 29, I want buttons in cars, touchscreen everything in cars. I don't want to look for 10 seconds not looking at the road finding the volume button for the Rafio code scanners for doors. We just got a new door system at work and you have to scan your phone twice since there are 2 doors. At any given point one doesn't want to scan easily. I want to go back to when things simply worked and weren't over-engineered. Story 30, touchscreens. With a regular keyboard I can type perfectly 99% of the time. And I don't have to look at my hands. With a touchscreen keyboard I make mistakes almost every time, and it takes more time because I have to make corrections and look at my hands. Story 31, I have a smart lamp on my room. It asks me download an app to register and login so I can use it. Every time I leave my house the dumb lamp forgets my login and I have to do it again using their horrendous app. Otherwise the lamp goes blinking, yes, blinking. If I don't do these steps every day I will not be able to turn on my light. The switch on my wall is just for decoration now. The whole process takes 2 minutes. I need to take that down for my sanity. Story 32, every appliance in my home is worse than the ones before them. One, I used to be able to cook even when my fingertips weren't perfectly clean and perfectly dry. Now I gently paw at the stovetop and pray that it will register a touch. 2, speaking of glass stovetops, I used to be able to adjust the heat or turn it off instantly with the flick of a wrist. Now it takes 6 to 7 seconds as I watch it count down from 9 to 1 to off. 3, I used to be able to spin something dry in the washing machine. Now that I have a smart machine, everything must be rinsed first. And I can set the temperature for a wash, but it takes 4 to 5 button presses to override the enigmatic programs and it won't remember any settings, because it's more smart than the user, for it was my choice to buy a washer-dryer combo machine, and I knew that it uses steam to dry the clothes. Yes, a modern marvel that uses extra water to dry something. But now my clothes can only be exactly as dry as the smart machine decides to make them. Still damp, too bad. You can't throw them back in, melted and shrunk, too bad. The extra 45 minutes of drying time were out of your hands. 5, I used to have an iron that was made of iron. It held heat and transferred it to the clothes, making them well ironed. Now I have a lightweight aluminium iron that goes cold in the middle of the process, and my clothes are forever wrinkled. 6. I used to have a TV that would display whatever I connected to it. Now I have a hidden camera in my sitting room that requires online connectivity for constant updates, but it's very smart because it interrupts the display once you connect something and names it unknown or PC whatever it may be. Now I have to remember that HDMI 2, called PC, is the stereo and HDMI 3, called TV, is my PC. Because it interrupts the display every time in order to go through this again. Story 33. Apps for everything. I don't want to hand out my personal information to everyone, and I don't want to install random bits of software on my phone. It might be convenient once everything is set up, but the main motivation is to maximize profits, cheaper machines, user retention, etc. Story 34. Applying to jobs online from the comfort of your home has made job-seeking hiring just a torrent of resumes. Couple it with AI job posting screening and applicants using AI, and it has become almost unmanageable. Story 35. Restaurant websites that never update or just redirect you to Facebook, but then you have to scroll through thousands of photos or posts just to find a menu. Like, why do you still pay for this website if you'll just end up using FB for everything and then decide to half that anyway? Story 36. Self-checkout that uses a camera to figure out what you have. I've used it maybe twice at a gas station and once at an arena because that's their only option. The camera would either misidentify something or not pick it up all 3 times. The arena had the audacity to ask me for a tip too. Story 37. Touchscreens. There's not a single piece of technology in my life I wouldn't want converted back to analog buttons, knobs, switches, and faders. I get why they are standard in today's world, but I still groan when I have to use on a printer, car, coffee machine, headphones, vending machine, or whatever. Analog controls are more tactile, easier to fix and tinker with, and you don't have to directly look at what you're touching to use it accurately. The frustration of fat thumbing the wrong thing or wondering did it register my touch, or is it just loading, is enough to put me in a mood. Story 38. The enshittification of the internet over the past decade is pretty awful. Also safety features in cars that cause them to beep incessantly. Thankfully my 2016 model was the perfect era with a lot of good features, but none of the nanny bullshit. The second I need to buy a newer car, I will find an auto electrician who is happy to take cash under the table to turn off all of that dog's hit that ruins modern cars. Story 39. Automated answering machines. I hate those so much. Also, videos for everything instead of an explanation I can read in 15 seconds. But no, I have to watch a 5 minutes video to get the same information now. Story 40. In the 1650s, the rules of honorable harvest were totally ignored by colonists who sought to take the land for everything it's worth. It was convenient for a few hundred years. But now the forests are sick and the soil is poor and the new forests don't grow with as much biodiversity as they once did. Now I'm separated from the land by a culture who thinks it can be owned and sold, and modern life is so out of balance with nature that complex civilization will soon be unsustainable and may collapse. So I guess the culture of irresponsible dominion over nature was convenient, but now it's making life harder for most living things. Story 41. A few years back on our trains, we'd buy a 10-trip ticket or a monthly pass. The conductor would walk the length of the train clipping tickets and selling single-trip tickets. They introduced electronic ticketing. Now we need to 1. Load up our cards with money. 2. Scan the card before boarding the train. 3. Let the conductor slowly check the cards on the train, which happens on most trains. The equipment is slower than the old clippers. 4. Scan the card when exiting the train in a queue of people. The old paper system was faster and easier. To their credit though, we finally have an integrated ticketing system and buses are far easier now. Story 42. QR codes were supposed to make life easier, but honestly they just made it worse. Every time I scan a QR code, I feel like I'm taking a cybersecurity risk. Story 43. Mobile phone bullshit. Every place wants you to download their shitty phone app and make an account. You, just let me buy the thing and give me a receipt. I'm not a phone zombie, I'm a computer lich, and just doing something like switching to a mobile provider, ATT, switching over to Spectrum, which is way cheaper. Even after the discount we get for 3 years, we're still going to be saving over $100 a month. You gotta go through a billion different bullshits just to do everything. And all these stupid companies just assume everyone browses on their phones and just happily makes themselves completely open every phone app they have. I'm a millennial computer dork. I was on the internet when only nerds and hobbyists were online. Back you get made fun of being on the computer at all. The dark times, the good times, the better, but also worse times. Just let me click a button and enter a code. Let me click. My bank uses robocallers. They sound exactly like scam calls. Not only do they make tons of money off the interest of my mortgage, but they also make tons of money investing the money they're holding for me. Pay a human to call me. Do me that slightest bit of respect. Story 44. Shops and restaurants used to have discount cards. Now they have apps, each and every one of them, also paying Trophpront's NFC chip. Sure, let me just open the app, wait until it loads, hope there is stable connection here and wait until it confirms the operation, or I can just take out my card and be done in 2 seconds. Story 45. Cars. 90% of all jobs nowadays requires you to have a driver's license, despite the job having nothing to do with driving. If you can't get a license due to physical psychological reasons like me, you're out of luck. Story 46. Smart TVs. They seem great at first, but then a couple years go by and the thing is outdated for the current OS updates, and it takes 30 minutes to find the streaming app you want. I actually still have an old plasma TV that is just a simple plug-in and select input, and I love it for that. I want to upgrade to OLED, but then I have to get a smart TV. Story 47. I visited Paris recently. I downloaded the app to travel on the metro. Tapping my phone would let me into stations but wouldn't let me out despite having valid activated trips showing. I had to scotch through the barriers behind other travelers. I went back to cardboard tickets after that. Story 48. Software updates that dumps everything down for idiots and makes it impossible for tech-literate people to do, so you have to become even more tech-literate to do it or wait for a super nerd to come along and make a third-party program or plugin to get whatever feature back you wanted. This is for Microsoft Windows most all. These hats always ruin Windows when it's perfectly fine. It's not enough to do security updates. These morons have to take away features and bloat the OS with garbage no one wants, spies on you harder, and crashes all the time. I wish someone would make a competitor. No, I don't want to get Linux and figure out which of the billions I need. No, I don't want the OS everyone recommends for tech-illiterate people. I'm just tech-literate enough to know how much of a hassle it's going to be because my work requires a specific combination of new and old programs that I'm most likely the only person in the world who uses this specific combo because I have a specific workflow with a bizarre combo of skills I've combined to make a living. Story 49. I'm so done with apps and people calling or texting expecting immediate responses. It was so much easier when you get a letter, stick it on the fridge, get to it when you get to it. If you missed a call because you weren't home or didn't answer, it was acceptable, try again later. Story 50. Cell phones. Every now and then you see one of those new idea commercials on a low visibility channel. Last horrible idea I recall was this battery-powered grill scrubber robot. It scrubs the grill for you, and you just have to put it in, take it out, recharge it, clean the scrubbers, find a place to put it without leaving grease everywhere while you're cooking, etc. Just take a minute with a wire brush, and you're saving yourself so much time. Story 51. Voice recognition software used by online merchants and service providers. If you have a problem that's not common, you sometimes cannot contact the store by phone at all. Story 52. AI customer service and chatbots. Every time I need to contact customer service and I get connected to an automated chatbot, they don't understand the issue, and the problem doesn't get solved. Story 53. Apps for everything. I bought a new fridge and it comes with an app. There is nothing I can do on the app that I can't do on the control panel in the fridge. I've never been away on holiday and thought it might be a good time to defrost the fridge. Story 54. Using an app for parking meters instead of coins. What if you're someone who doesn't own a smartphone, or an elderly person? What the am I going to do with all the change in my cup holder? Story 55. All. Because it encourages rampant consumerism, and that's a never-ending death spiral with short-term fixation of quarterly results, which is why companies can report record profits while the working class continues to struggle. Story 56. Not sure if someone already mentioned it, but multiple-factor authentication. I hate it, especially if your session ends after 3 or 4 hours. Having to re-authenticate into everything at work sucks. Story 57. Productivity trackers. The more I feel like I'm watched, the worse I do. It's like having a cop behind you. You know you aren't speeding or doing anything wrong but feel like you're going to get pulled over anyways. Also, the trackers are inhumane and have started treating humans like robots. You can't even take it without being questioned where you are. Let's start remembering humans aren't machines, and instead of punishing people who aren't reaching your ridiculous quality over quantity always. Story 58. Can I call a pizza place and tell them what I want, then pay when the pizza arrives? It boggles my mind that people younger than me prefer clicking through a laborious website to order a pizza, because talking to another human is so awful. Story 59. AI information research. Instead of searching for the odd web page or paper that was definitely correct, it's now way easier and time-effective to get this huge flow of kinda correct information instantly through AI platforms. I feel like most people even know that the responses are 50 waffle, but they don't care as the alternative takes so much longer now. Story 60. When you go to a website, but it doesn't work on your phone because there's an app for it which you have installed, so you click on the pop-up that says open this in the app, and that just takes you to the App Store for the app that you already have installed. Story 61. The Internet. In recent years it's incredibly annoying for every site to have a pop-up asking me about their cookie policy, like I'm not even sure why this is a thing to begin with or how it started. There's a setting in your browser called Do Not Track. So why are they asking me with this, that, and requiring subscriptions or whatever to read a news article? I'm old enough to remember a time when no one had cell phones and young enough to understand how incredibly useful of a tool they are. That being said, I think the constant ability to be connected to the amount of information the internet provides combined with the new societal expectation that you are always reachable is ruining life as we know it. The world survived perfectly fine when you were pretty much only reachable while at your workplace and limited time outside of that. But now my customers, friends, acquaintances, people I don't really know but know me, and every other person that could potentially want to reach me can do so anytime they want through my cell or social media. Story 62. My daughter's school has went cashless. Now to get school lunch you need to use an app that's horrible and has an egregious credit card convenience fee. She's in first grade. Story 63. Current versions of LLMs. Not only are they trained on other people's work, often copyrighted and always without compensation, their hallucinations are a threat to safety, security, and information fidelity. If I can't make it collate a list of data points I type into it directly without adding extra out of thin air, how much more if dealing with electronic health records, management decisions, or deciding who gets fired in a government agency? Story 64 touchscreens in cars. It's unbelievable how much more dangerous driving is when I have to take my eyes off the road to adjust the temperature of my AC, or change the radio. Just put the buttons back for S sake. A warning about taking my eyes off the road every third time I turn on the car doesn't do. Story 65 speakerphone. The sole purpose is for when you're at home on hold with whatever company, not for when you're in public talking to your friend about how great the Kardashians are. Story 66 Our city got light rail train LRT to replace the bus network in our city Ottawa. My life of getting on a bus, falling half asleep and getting off in front of my building turned into get on bus. Get off bus and get on LRT when it was working. Get off LRT and then either walk across the bridge in -40 weather to my building or wait for another bus on the platform. It actually played a major factor in my decision to switch jobs. Story 67 Everyone has a car, and roads are everywhere, sidewalks aren't, because everyone has a car, right? And who needs a taxi or the bus when you can call an Uber? I'm epileptic. Until this past year, I was not cleared and learned to drive, and it's basically illegal for me to drive without clearance in my US state. Even my own parents didn't fully get why this was an issue until they had to drive me everywhere in college. Story 68 QR code menus. Bonus points if they don't provide easily accessible Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi at all. Makes me want to bounce my head off a wall, especially when I'm with the tech illiterate. Story 69 I know it's for my own safety, but I hate that almost every account I have requires two-factor authentication to log in, banks and other sensitive stuff. Sure, I see that, but why do I need to enter a code texted to me to log into Cameo when I just provided my username and long, obnoxious password? Story 70 What started as a few places having apps memberships for discounts has turned into needing an app to get normal prices at every gas station and grocery store. I understand it's a tool for brand loyalty, but man is it annoying. Story 71 LEDs I work in the film world. LEDs as great as they are has added so much more to lighting. It used to be he's a lamp it's made up of a glass tube housing and 3 wires. You run it over with a truck replace glass and keep going. Now incandescents are getting harder to find, and LEDs are basically just lights with computers in them. Everything needs to be programmed. If it gets too hot it flickers, if it gets too cold it flickers. And now when it starts burning out you have to replace the whole thing and spend thousands. They're also heavy real pain. They look cool though. Story 72 And how could I forget the online job application process where you upload your resume, then it asks you to enter your entire job history you just uploaded from your resume. Story 73 I scrolled a long way and didn't see self-checkout, which is shocking to me. They literally took a job that used to exist and piled it onto the customer's shoulders while relentlessly raising prices anyway. Self-checkouts. Using AI for customer service. It refuses to answer the question I actually have and won't solve the problem that I'm having. Story 74 Some sat down about 15 years ago and decided to make Tetra Pak milk cartons with little nipple lids on them, that kind of fold back, and now I can open about 1 in 10 bottles of almond milk without spilling it. It's like they actually made an effort to make it worse. Story 75 Please enter an email and password to sign up for an account, or enter a new password, then when you do it redirects you to a page where you have to enter your new email and password to enter your account. I just did that. Oftentimes I'm on the site because of an email they've sent. When I'm signed in it asks, do you want to receive emails? Story 76 Whenever I go to the restaurant and they have a QR code instead of an actual physical menu, it's always horrible, and the online menu is always terribly designed. Story 77 This may not be a popular answer, but for me in the workplace it is for sure email and instant messaging apps like Teams. My view doesn't come from the standpoint that instant communication isn't a good thing, because it is, however, it's more from the point of view that people want things immediately instead of having to wait their turn. Every email and Teams message is a fire that must be put out, it seems. It interrupts trains of thought, workflow, etc. It is annoying. Story 78 This is going to be pretty meta-sounding, but the amount of choice we have in the modern world, as someone with mild autism, ADHD, and ADD, having so much choice in the world is daunting at times. Take streaming services. You'll sometimes spend an hour just looking through the endless options and never picking something to watch just because the choices are so daunting. Same thing for music streaming. I miss the days of iPods. I still use one. I go to the search bar of Apple Music and I literally can't think of a single song to listen to sometimes. It was easier when we just had our entire hand-selected music library right there in our pockets. Story 79 My VW Golf has a touchscreen sliding control for the heater instead of a dial. It is absolutely bullshit. For dinner reason isn't backlit either, and it's enough for me to want to change the car for one with a rotary dial. Story 80 Planned obsolescence. I just want to fix things that I like, not have to replace it, cause as soon as the production run is done you cannot buy spare parts. Story 81 New operating systems for my computer that removed my ability to fix any of the problems with it in the name of being user-friendly, then getting super slow and filling up with ads. Story 82 Cars automatic start-stop. Useless engineering design made to lower engine life. Almost as practical as plastic drain pans for your car's oil pans. Ahem, Ford, BMW, Dodge. Story 83 In most circumstances, waiters, waitresses, I have to wait to fill my glass because it's their job. I have to wait to get my food because it's their job. I have to wait until one of them is free to bring up issues because it's their job. I can't just tell the chef what I want because that's the waiter's job. I can't even pour my own cheese over my food. I have to try to time the amount of cheese just right, and it gets super awkward if it wasn't the exact amount I wanted, and then I have TO pay them extra. Story 84. I went to urgent care today. I was the only patient there, and they could have just checked my ID and insurance and sent me straight to a doctor, but instead, I had to scan a QR code to register even for a walk-in appointment. Story 85. My car key has developed a fault. The cost of replacing a standard ignition car key, 30. The cost of replacing an ignitionless key where you just press a button, 300. I'd rather just use a manual ignition key, thanks. Story 86. Most of it. Let's be real for a minute. The majority of modern convenience isn't really convenient at all. What it is cheap, all part of the race to the bottom that puts the most amount of money in the pockets of a small demographic. Story 87. I hate when I try to make a DR appointment and I have TI tell the receptionist what's my issue so they can decide if I'm getting a face-to-face or phone appointment. Story 88. AI. I love crafts, sewing, felting, embroidery, etc. All crafting sites are absolutely flooded with scam AI patterns now that make garbage that looks nothing like the pictures. Trying to find legit patterns is a nightmare. Also, I make a living as an artist, and I can feel my whole 20-year career about to be ripped out from under me. Hopefully not immediately, but inevitably.